Detective smashed his own foot to escape a trap. An FBI agent stabbed his throat with a ballpoint pen. And a woman cut off her entire arm just to win a contest. In the Saw movies, the most horrifying decisions were actually the most brilliant ones. And by the end of this video, you'll see how the smartest person in this franchise pulled off the greatest trick of all time to survive. So let's start with what might be the most insane medical procedure ever performed in a horror movie. Agent Peter Strahm wakes up in Saw 5 with his head trapped inside a glass box. Water starts pouring in. He's got maybe a minute before he drowns. Now, most people would panic. They'd bang on the glass, scream for help, and maybe hyperventilate and make things worse. Strahm looks around and thinks, you know what? I'm just gonna stab myself in the throat with this pen. The guy performs an emergency tracheotomy on himself with a ballpoint pen while drowning. That's not just smart. That's the kind of clear thinking that makes you wonder what else this dude's got tucked away in his brain. Here's why this worked. Strahm remembered basic medical training. If you can't breathe through your mouth and nose, make a new hole. The water keeps filling up, but now he's got an airway below his chin. He can breathe through the pen tube while his face is completely underwater. What makes this brilliant isn't just the medical knowledge, it's that he stayed calm enough to remember it. Hoffman designed this trap thinking nobody would survive. Water plus enclosed space equals dead FBI agent, right? Wrong. Strahm basically said nice try and performed surgery on himself. The best part? Hoffman never saw this coming. He probably watched the whole thing thinking, well, that's new. Strahm bought himself time to figure out who was really behind these games. Without that pen trick, the whole investigation would have been ended right there. But creative surgery is nothing compared to creative engineering and what it can get you in the Saw franchise. Because Detective Hoffman finds himself in the same death mask that killed Amanda's cellmate in the first movie, the reverse bear trap. You know, the thing that rips your jaw apart when the timer hits 0, except this time, there is no key. Jill Tuck put him in this thing specifically to kill him, with no escape route and no clever riddle to solve. Just 60 seconds before his head becomes a very messy art project. Hoffman tries everything. He smashes his hand to get loose from the chair. Painful, but necessary. He grabs a screwdriver and tries to pick the lock. The clock's ticking. Nothing's working. This is where most people would just accept their fate and maybe write a quick mental goodbye letter to their loved ones. He looks at this door with metal bars and has what can only be described as a light bulb moment. Instead of trying to remove the trap, why not just break it? So he positions the trap's jaws between the door bars and lets the timer run out. The device goes off exactly as designed, but the metal bars stop the jaws from fully opening. The trap basically punches itself to death on the door frame while Hoffman's head stays attached to his shoulders. Sure, his face gets mangled, he's got scars that'll make small children cry, but he's alive, and that's what matters when you're playing Jigsaw's games. This move was pure engineering genius. Hoffman turned the trap's own force against it. Jill thought she was being clever by removing the key, but she forgot that sometimes you don't need to unlock something. You just need to break it in the right place. Hoffman outsmarted a device that was supposed to be foolproof by using basic physics and whatever around him was handy. And speaking of problem solving, sometimes the answer in a Saw movie is just cutting to the chase. Simone wakes up in what might be the worst weight loss challenge ever created. She's chained to a scale opposite to this guy Eddie, and they've got 1 minute to cut off pieces of themselves. Whoever loses the most weight lives. The other person dies. Eddie starts slicing off little chunks of fat from his stomach. Makes sense, right? He's a bigger guy, so he figures he can just keep trimming until he hits the target weight. Small cuts, steady process, minimal damage to any vital parts. Simone tries the same approach at first. Finger here, some skin there, but then she stops and does the math. Eddie's got a head start in the chunk department, and she's running out of time to play catch up with tiny pieces. So what does she do? She grabs a meat cleaver and hacks off her entire arm in one swing. One arm, gone. Problem solved. Eddie's still over there playing deli slicer on his belly while Simone just threw down what amounts to 8 pounds of instant victory. The scale tips, literally, and she wins with seconds to spare. This wasn't just desperation, this was cold math. Eddie thought he could nickel and dime his way to survival, but Simone understood the assignment. Go big or go dead. She picked the option that guaranteed results instead of hoping small cuts would add up fast enough. The crazy part is how obvious it seems after you see it happen. Of course, chopping off a whole limb beats trimming bits of fat. But most people wouldn't think that clearly when they're staring at a meat cleaver and a ticking clock. Simone did the brutal calculation and made the call that kept her breathing. And that level of commitment paved the way for the franchise's most famous amputation. Dr. Lawrence Gordon spends most of the first Saw movie chained to a pipe in a bathroom that probably fails every health code inspection ever written. He's got until 6 o'clock to kill his roommate Adam or his family dies. You know, just a regular night for him. As the deadline approaches, Gordon gets more frantic. He tries everything, picking locks, breaking chains, reasoning with their captor over a cell phone that gets worse reception than a subway tunnel. Nothing is working. Then he notices something. The hacksaw they left him wasn't meant for the chains. It was meant for his ankle. Gordon realizes he's got two choices: stay chained and watch his family get murdered, or saw off his own foot and crawl out of there to save them. Most people would probably just sit there and have an existential crisis. Not Gordon. He wraps his shirt around his leg, grabs the saw, and gets to work. The scene is brutal. He's not just cutting through bone, he's cutting through every assumption about what a normal person would do to survive. By the time he's done, there's a foot-shaped hole in his future and a pretty good chance he'll bleed out before he reaches help. But here's the thing, it worked. Gordon crawled out of that bathroom, got medical attention, and saved his family. Sure, he walks around with a pretty serious limp for the rest of his life, but his wife and daughter are alive. This sole decision launched the entire Saw franchise. Every trap that followed, every impossible choice, every moment where someone had to sacrifice part of themselves, it all started with Gordon deciding that keeping his family was worth more than keeping his foot. Sometimes the smart choice is the one that hurts the most. And honestly, if we didn't have this scene, we likely wouldn't have the entire Saw series, because if this movie was a flop, we probably wouldn't have gotten sequels. But medical expertise is only half the battle without proper follow-through for our next person. Because yes, cutting off your foot is impressive, but not bleeding to death afterwards? Well, that's where Gordon really earned his medical degree. After crawling out of that bathroom, Gordon's got a new problem. He just performed major surgery on himself with a rusty saw, and now he's leaving a trail of blood that would make a crime scene investigator very concerned about his iron levels. Most people who manage to cut off their own limbs probably figured the hard part's over. They crawl towards the nearest exit, maybe try to call 911 and hope an ambulance shows up before they pass out. Gordon looks down his bleeding stump and thinks, you know what this needs? More pain. Because he finds a hot steam pipe and presses his severed ankle directly against it. The man takes his open wound and basically grills it shut like a George Foreman grill. We're talking about deliberately burning your own flesh to seal blood vessels. That's not just first aid. That is insane. And it's probably the only way you stay conscious long enough to actually get help. Gordon knew that blood loss would kill him faster than infection, so he chose immediate agony over gradual death. The steam pipe turned his wound into what amounts to a very painful bandage. Sure, he passes out from the pain later, but his circulatory system stayed where it was supposed to. This move saved his life twice. First, it stopped the bleeding that would have finished him off in minutes. Second, it impressed Jigsaw enough that John decided Gordon was worth rescuing. Apparently, nothing says survival instinct to a serial killer like willingly barbecuing your own ankle. Without this decision, Gordon would have been just another victim who made it halfway out before dying in a hallway. Instead, he became Jigsaw's secret partner for years. Sometimes the difference between living and dying is how much extra pain you're willing to accept when you're already having the worst day of your life. Of course, though, not everyone needs a medical degree to learn from experience. Because Detective Eric Matthews wakes up in the same bathroom where Gordon lost his foot, and he's got the same problem. Ankle cuff, hacksaw, limited time. But Matthews had one advantage Gordon didn't. He's already seen how this movie ends. Matthews looks at that saw and immediately knows what Gordon went through. The blood stains on the floor probably help paint the picture too. So he's got a choice. Do exactly what Gordon did or try to think of something slightly less drastic. And that's when Matthews notices he's got something Gordon didn't have nearby. A heavy toilet tank lid. Instead of sawing through flesh and bone, Matthews decides to just destroy his foot the good old-fashioned way. He grabs that porcelain lid and starts smashing his ankle into what only can be described as a very painful jigsaw puzzle. Breaking every bone in your foot sounds terrible, and it definitely was, but Matthews figured out something important. Collapsed bones still let you slip out of a cuff. You don't need to actually remove the foot, you just need to make it small enough to squeeze through. This wasn't just random violence. Matthews had done the math. Massive blood loss versus massive pain. Gordon nearly died from bleeding out, but Matthews kept all of his blood where it belonged. His foot was absolutely destroyed, but it was still attached to his leg. The best part? Matthews could still walk afterwards. Well, Walk might be generous, more like hobble around on what used to be a functional joint, but he stayed mobile for months, which is more than most people manage after their first encounter with Jigsaw's bathroom. But physical pain is just one thing. Moral boundaries get more interesting. Amanda Young gets to wear the original reverse bear trap, back when Jigsaw was still figuring out his whole aesthetic. She wakes up with 60 seconds before her job becomes an art installation nobody wants to see. The rules are simple. There's a key in the stomach of the unconscious guy next to her. Get the key, live. Don't get the key, become a big red blob. Amanda starts slow. She approaches the body, feels around for the key through his shirt. Normal person behavior, trying to find a less violent solution. Maybe the key's just sitting loose in there, right? Maybe this won't require actual surgery. But then she realizes this guy isn't dead. He's breathing, sedated, but alive. This changes everything. Amanda's not just digging through a corpse anymore. She's about to commit murder to save herself. 30 seconds left on the clock, and she's got to decide if her life is worth more than his. Amanda grabs a scalpel and starts cutting. She doesn't hesitate once she makes the choice. She stabs him multiple times, digs through his insides, and finds the key, unlocks the trap with seconds to spare. The device springs open harmlessly, and Amanda collapses next to her victim's body. What made this brilliant wasn't the violence, it was the speed of her decision. Amanda understood the test immediately. Jigsaw wasn't asking if she could solve a puzzle. He was asking if she wanted to live badly enough to kill for it. Most people would have spent those 60 seconds having a moral crisis. Amanda spent a couple seconds deciding, and the rest acting. She chose survival over ethics and lived to have nightmares about it later. That quick calculation between her life and his turned her into Jigsaw's first success story and eventual apprentice. But sometimes the deadliest enemy isn't even a trap at all. It's just panic itself. Art, Blank, and Trevor wake up chained together in what has to be the worst team building exercise ever designed. Trevor's eyes are sewn shut. Art's mouth is sewn closed, and they're both being pulled towards a machine that definitely wasn't built for making a smoothie. Trevor immediately loses it. He can't see anything, and he starts swinging wildly with whatever sharp objects he can grab. He's attacking Art, attacking the walls, and basically attacks the concept of staying alive through rational thought. Art, meanwhile, stays quiet, not just because his mouth is sealed, but he's actually listening. He's looking around, trying to figure out what's happening while Trevor's having a full meltdown next to him. And that's when Art notices something Trevor can't see. The key to their chains is hanging right there on Trevor's collar. The problem is, Trevor's too busy having a panic attack to hold still long enough for Art to grab it. So Art makes a cold decision. He arms himself with an axe and waits for Trevor to charge him. When Trevor comes at him swinging, Art dodges and puts the axe through Trevor's skull multiple times, just to be sure. With Trevor dead, Art calmly takes the key and unlocks himself. The machine stops, his mouth tears open, and he walks away alive. Trevor died because he couldn't control his fear. Art lived because he could think past his. The trap was designed to test whether they'd work together or turn on each other. Trevor chose chaos. Art chose survival. A smart move here wasn't the killing. It was staying calm enough to spot the solution. Art saw the key, made a plan, and executed it. Trevor saw nothing but darkness and decided violence was the answer to everything. One of them figured out the puzzle. The other became part of it. But brute force only gets you so far when you're dealing with psychology, because Emily finds herself strapped to a spinning carousel with 5 other people, facing a shotgun that's about to play the world's deadliest game of Russian roulette. William, their insurance executive boss, gets to choose who lives and who becomes wall decorations. When the carousel stops at each person, they all start begging standard stuff. Please don't kill me. I have so much to live for. I promise I'll be nicer. You know, the usual desperate pleading you'd expect from people about to meet a very loud, very final deadline. Emily takes a different approach though. Instead of talking about herself, she talks about her kids. She breaks down crying, telling William her children can't grow up without their mom. She paints this beautiful picture of 2 little kids waiting at home, wondering why mommy isn't coming back to make them mac and cheese. William's holding all of the cards here, but Emily just played the one card that actually matters to him. She turned this from save me into save them. Smart move, because now William isn't just choosing who dies, he's choosing which kids become orphans. The strategy works, and William saves Emily, and suddenly everyone else is scrambling to copy her playbook. My parents are sick. I'm pregnant. My goldfish has separation anxiety. Everyone's trying to find their own version of Emily's guilt trip. But Emily got there first. She read William's psychology perfectly and knew that a man making life and death decisions might actually care more about innocent kids than the adults who landed themselves in this this mess. While her coworkers were focused on their own survival, Emily was focused on William's conscience. She understood that in a game where someone else holds your life in their hands, the winning move isn't begging for mercy, it's giving them a reason to want to save you. And that kind of manipulation works great until people start working together. Brad and Ryan wake up in the opening of Saw 3D with buzzsaws pointing at each other and their mutual girlfriend, Dina, hanging up above them. It's the classic love triangle setup, except this isn't Friends. This is Friends with dismemberment. The game's rules are simple. Push the saws toward each other, one guy dies. The other gets the girl. Do nothing and Dina gets split in half. Jigsaw clearly expected these two to fight over who deserves to survive. At first, that's exactly what happens. Both guys start pushing those saws, trying to kill each other while Dina shouts encouragement to whoever seems to be winning. She's playing both sides, telling Brad she loves him when he's ahead, then switching to Ryan when the momentum shifts. But then something clicks. Brad and Ryan stop trying to murder each other and actually listen to what Dina's saying. She is not picking a side. She's just cheering for whoever might save her. They realize Dina's been lying to both of them this whole time. She got them into this situation by playing games with their feelings, and now she's doing it again. So they make a decision that Jigsaw probably never saw coming. They point both saws at Dina instead. Brad and Ryan went from enemies to allies in about 30 seconds. They figured out that the real problem wasn't each other. It was the person who had been manipulating them both. Instead of fighting over someone who didn't actually care about either of them, they chose to save themselves and walk away. This was brilliant because it completely broke Jigsaw's game. The trap was designed to force them into a competition, but they chose cooperation instead. They turned a deathmatch into a team up and eliminated the source of their conflict in one move. Sometimes the smartest decision is realizing that you're playing the wrong game altogether. But that compares nothing to when corporations get even more impressive when it comes to life or death. BRIT and Mallick reach the final room of their nightmare group project to find a machine that wants 10 pints of blood before it'll unlock the exit door. There are 5 spots for hands, clearly designed for 5 people to each donate 2 pints. Unfortunately, 3 of their teammates already died because nobody figured out they were supposed to work together. Now it's just 2 people staring at a quota meant for 5. Mallick's first instinct is pretty dark. Maybe they should fight to the death and the winner can use the loser's entire blood supply to fill the machine. Efficient, but that's gonna be messy. BRIT stops and actually looks at the setup. 5 identical keys, 5 matching slots, everything designed for a group effort. She realizes they've been playing the game wrong from the start. All those previous traps where people died, they could have beaten every single one by cooperating instead of backstabbing each other. But it's too late for regrets though. They've got 10 pints to produce and only 2 bodies to produce them. BRIT does some quick medical math.
So one person can fill the beaker with 10 pints of blood and die, or 2 people can fill it with 5 pints. Maybe live.
So they make tourniquets out of their clothes, stick their arms into the saws at the same time, and donate 5 pints each. The machine frills up, the doors open, and both of them collapse from blood loss just as help arrives. What made this genius wasn't just the willingness to hurt themselves. It was finally understanding what Jigsaw had been trying to teach them the whole time. The game was never about competition. It was about trust. BRIT and Mallick cracked the code just in time to save their own lives. They survived because they stopped thinking about individual survival and started thinking about shared survival. Sometimes being smart means admitting you've been stupid and changing course before it's too late. But of course, the ultimate manipulation is making someone choose their own death. Hoffman leads Agent Strahm to a room with a large glass coffin and plays him a recording that says, "Get in the coffin and live, stay out and die." Strahm hears this and thinks, yeah right, the serial killer wants me to climb into a death box? What's next? He's gonna try selling me a timeshare? So naturally, Strahm refuses. And when Hoffman shows up, Strahm ambushes him and forces him into the coffin at gunpoint. Coffin seals, lowers into the floor, and Strahm probably feels pretty good at outsmarting the bad guy. Then the walls start moving inward. Turns out Hoffman was telling the truth on that tape. The coffin was the only safe place in the room. Strahm just sentenced himself to death by being too suspicious to follow obvious instructions. This wasn't luck on Hoffman's part. He knew exactly what kind of person Strahm was. A smart, stubborn cop who wouldn't trust anything a killer told him. Hoffman counted on Strahm's intelligence working against him. The recording wasn't reverse psychology. It was just psychology. Hoffman told Strahm exactly what he needed to do to survive, but he delivered the message in a way that guaranteed Strahm would reject it. And when Strahm forced Hoffman into the coffin, Hoffman actually smiled. because that was the plan all along. Get the suspicious cop to do the opposite of what the tape said by making the tape sound like an obvious trap. Strahm died because he was too smart for his own good. He overthought a simple instruction and turned his paranoia into a weapon against himself. Hoffman eliminated his biggest threat by letting Strahm's own brain do all the work. The most dangerous trap isn't the one that tricks you, it's the one that lets you trick yourself. And Hoffman just provided the setup and watched Strahm walk into his own grave. Now, I think mind games are pretty impressive, but long-term deception takes real commitment. William SCHENK pulls off what might be the most elaborate game of hide and seek in horror movie history. Halfway through Spiral, cops find what looks like his skinned corpse, complete with his signature tattoo. Case closed, right? Another victim of the Jigsaw copycat. Wrong. SCHENK killed some random criminal, flayed the guy's skin, and tattooed his own alias onto it. And then he left this grisly scene for his co-workers to discover. The police saw the tattoo, assumed it was SCHENK, and immediately crossed him off the suspect list. This wasn't just clever, it was obsessively detailed. SCHENK spent who knows how long planning this fake death, right down to getting the tattoo placement exactly right. The beauty of this move was timing. SCHENK vanished from suspicion right when the investigation was heating up. Everyone stopped looking for him because they thought he was already dead and filed away in the morgue. Meanwhile, SCHENK's walking around freely, probably buying groceries and doing normal serial killer errands while his colleagues are having memorial services for his fake corpse. He's attending his own funeral, metaphorically speaking, and watching everyone feel sorry for his tragic death. This gave him the perfect cover to set up his final trap. Nobody suspects a dead man of kidnapping people. Detective Banks never saw it coming because he was too busy mourning his supposedly deceased partner. SCHENK turned his own death into the ultimate alibi. He disappeared in plain sight and let everyone else do the work of believing he was gone. By the time anyone figured out the truth, he'd already won the game and vanished for real. That kind of planning takes years though, but one mastermind thought decades ahead. After Gordon crawls out of that bathroom missing a foot, most people would expect him to go straight to therapy and maybe write a strongly worded letter to the Better Business Bureau. John Kramer had different plans. Instead of letting Gordon hobble off into the sunset, John secretly rescues him and nurses him back to health. Not out of guilt though. This is Jigsaw we're talking about. He saw potential in someone who'd literally given up a limb to save his family. John offers Gordon a proposition: help design future tests, use his medical skills to make the traps more precise, and assist with the whole teaching people to appreciate life project. Gordon, probably still processing the fact that he voluntarily amputated his own foot, agrees to join the team. This recruitment wasn't random. John specifically chose a doctor who'd survived his test to prove he could make impossible choices under pressure. Gordon brought surgical expertise that John needed for more complex traps, things like implanting keys inside people or creating devices that required medical precision. The real genius move was John's backup plan. He made Gordon promise to protect Jill if anything happened to John. Years later, when Detective Hoffman betrays Jill and tries to kill her, Gordon shows up to fulfill that promise. Gordon traps Hoffman in the same bathroom where his own nightmare began, completing a circle that John planned from the very beginning. John died knowing someone would carry out his final wish, even if he wasn't around to see it. This decision turned one of John's victims into his most loyal ally. Gordon spent years secretly helping Jigsaw while maintaining his normal life as a doctor. John didn't just gain an accomplice, he gained someone who truly understood what it meant to sacrifice everything to survive. The smart move here wasn't just recruiting Gordon, it was trusting him with the keys to the kingdom and knowing that trust would pay off years later. And all that forward thinking came from the original master of deception. During the entire first Saw movie, there is a dead body lying on the bathroom floor between Gordon and Adam. Apparently, this guy shot himself in the head. It's just standard corpse behavior, just lying there, minding his own business, slowly decomposing while two guys argue about who's gonna kill who. Except that corpse is John Kramer. Very much not dead and very much alive. Just hanging out on the floor, listening to every word, watching every move, covered in fake blood and probably getting the worst neck cramps of his life. John spent hours motionless on that disgusting bathroom floor. He had to control his breathing. He couldn't react when things got intense and basically had to method act being dead while his victims tried to figure out how to murder each other. Literally, what if he had to fart? I'm being serious. How do you hold it in for that long? I get like lasting an hour or two, but like for that long, if you fart, it's game over. That's commitment to the bit. When Adam gets left alone in the dark at the end, that corpse suddenly sits up, peels off his fake head wound, and casually announces game over. Adam probably needed therapy just from that moment alone. This reveal changed everything. John wasn't some distant puppet master pulling strings from a warehouse somewhere. He was right there the whole time, close enough to smell their fear and probably judge their problem-solving skills in real time. The brilliance wasn't just the disguise itself, it was a psychological advantage. John got to observe his test subjects up close, see how they really behaved under pressure, and make sure his experiment went exactly as planned. If something had gone wrong, he could have intervened immediately. But more than that, John proved he was willing to put himself at risk for his craft. Lying motionless for hours next to two crazy desperate men with hacksaws? Yeah, that takes either incredible confidence or complete insanity. This twist created like the template for every Saw movie that followed. The mastermind isn't some like wimp coward watching from security cameras. He's probably in the room with you, and you'll never see him coming until it's too late, because he's right behind you right now. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like this video and comment down below what you would like to see from me in the future. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our future uploads. And if you're not ready for bed yet, because most people watch this at night, you can watch this video on screen now. It's just as good.